Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the next installment of the Golden Cap. We're going to have a little bit lighter of a week. A lot of matches got rescheduled. Not a lot of crazy news happened, but we have a ton of questions that you guys just asked in the Discord ready to go. I'm Sandblast, joined by my second in command, Marmaloo. We got Dolphin running the camera in the background, working his 9 to 5 on this podcast. How's everyone doing?
Doing good, like you said, not much has changed. The big match that we're probably going to talk about for a good amount of this has been rescheduled, and not many like power ranking things happened because not many teams played and had very close matches at least.
Yeah, I think the only thing that changed is we know what map they're playing on. It's Gully Wash. I believe that it lands on Tuesday. I just didn't think Laz was around. I think something came up and he wasn't able to play. But like I said, we're going to try and get through as much of this as possible. We have a ton of questions, more than usual for the end of the podcast. But, let's jump into the current news. There is only really one thing that's happening. That's the Australian pastime tournament that has actually just got announced a couple hours ago, which is pretty cool. So keep your eye out for that because it looks interesting. I was always like a fan of like the little 4v4 pastime thing that Jaguar Fiend used to run. It was an interesting game mode. It was different. It had a lot of cool mechanics, like going for air shots. Like you had to be good at hitting air shots, even though it's more of like a luck based thing. But people were making that game mode work, man. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I played Pastime a couple times as a joke on stream. It's actually somewhat fun. I feel like playing with actual like invite players would be pretty fun. Yeah. But I don't know if I'm trying to organize something like that.
Yeah, it's too much to organize, but like I know he made like there was like custom maps. Apparently Demo Knight's like a viable character that you'd want to play in that because you could do some crazy trim jumps and the ball just flies around the map. But it is fun. I'm not the best at it. In sixes, me and Marmaloo are probably the invite players, but in 4-on-4 pastime, we're definitely mid open. So
at best.
And I know that there's a couple sleepers in the pastime world. So if you're from Australia and maybe you want to play with 250 ping from NA, enter this pastime event. It looks like a lot of fun. I don't know exactly what day it's happening because it looks like it's just replacing the land down under, and I
July
don't know.
11th at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I'm assuming that's what AEST
probably
means.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be
something around there.
I think it's like 8 a.m, maybe earlier. I could be wrong, but
I think it's earlier.
Maybe, yeah. It's because I think 4 a.m. Nice. Whoa. So you guys want to be up at 4 a.m. to play pastime? I know.
I could stay up till 1 a.m. and play.
That's
like 250 ping, pastime. Just get hit around every wall. But let's get into we have a couple matches to recap. Like we said, there wasn't really much. First one we got is Froyo Mal happened. It was on Villa. It was a 24-minute 5-0 with Froyo winning 4 to the 5 mids. And surprisingly, looking at these stats, it wasn't that big of a roll. Like, Mal got 8 caps in a 5-0 loss, which is pretty big because they won only 1 mid. So max, they got like 2 or 3 caps. And then a couple times they either retook mid, retook second, all that. And they had a ringer in alpha. And like I said, it was a lot closer looking than it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those 5-0s don't come around too often, especially against Froyo Tech. And I feel like they played good, for what happened. They got their 8 caps. It seemed like, it was back and forth a little bit. Since it wasn't streamed, it's kind of hard to see how it actually played out. But just looking at the stats, it definitely wasn't a roll. Unlike this next match we are going to talk about, Dexter's Lab versus Ascent. I think this is one of the most dominating games of TF2 I've ever seen stat-wise. 5-0 for Ascent, sub 10 minutes. Dexter's Lab never capped a point. They lost every mid. The frag output to damage output was nowhere close to each other. It was a tough game for Dexter's Lab.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we actually started. This is probably the biggest roll I've ever seen. Like, Lol Guy got a perfect game and had 2 kills, and Exile had 0 kills and took 450 DTM.
I think between Phelps and Exile, we've seen more goose eggs in recent time.
Exile's just taken L's recently, Lost his name, got this one, only place to go is up from here.
I mean, honestly, I don't think there's a way this team could play as bad as they did in the next match. Granted, maybe it could have been Ascent. Maybe it was an off night. Maybe Exile just wasn't feeling it. He had to change his name, got kicked out, lost to the Jumper main. Jumper mains are just better than comp players in every way possible. But it was a tough game. I wish there was an STV. I could have watched to see what exactly Ascent did. But we have another match. This one not a roll like the other ones. This one actually was a little bit closer than people probably would have expected.
Yeah, with the the boys took it 5-3, but it was a really close back and forth match. Took 49 minutes. Mids were split 4-4, and the game ended on, I think it was 4-3, where Ah Shie was pushing Dorsia's last, and they just couldn't get it, and Dorsia ended up flipping it around with like a minute left and getting the 5th round, which really didn't matter, but just another round for the stats. And at least from my perspective when we were playing, the main problems was 2 of the last holds we had, they just capped when they were like at a losing fight, like just barely, twice, and our last pushes weren't very good. But overall, they played a pretty good game overall, and was really, really balanced with the stats at least, and just a solid game from Ah Shie.
I mean, there you go. You heard it from the man himself, the guy who's in the match, saying a close game, a couple caps that were maybe a little gimmicky that could have been stopped with the losing fights, but sometimes just maybe 2 scouts on the point is a little too much.
Also,
but
shout out to Yite Demo, top
nice.
damaging the game.
Let's go, popping off. But honestly, the next segment typically, if you guys have been watching, is typically the power ranking segment. Again, there were 3 matches that were played, and none of them had playoff implications, and none of the teams that were supposed to, fighting for their either their PR rank or their seed played. So power rankings really can't change. I mean, we were talking about this instead of just going through, class, team by team rather. It's kind of hard to do that because comparing it to last week, it's literally going to line up as the exact same as last week.
Yeah, I think we had the same one as well. So it's like nothing is going to change.
My power rankings weren't going to change. I mean, we can go over it, but I mean, honestly, your best bet's just to go to the power ranking segment of last week's podcast if you're here, and just see the power rankings from there, because they're honestly not going to change, since, like I said, none of the lower level teams played each other. None of the top teams really played each other. I think Froyo and Mao are kind of in their own league. Dorsia, Ah Shie's in their own league, and obviously Ascent, Dexter's Lab. None of them are close in comparison to the playoff race. So, I mean, like I said, nothing really gets affected by that.
The only really close one in seeding is Dorsia, Ah Shie, but nothing really moves because Dorsia was above, and then they won. But Ah Shie also had a close game, but I think we put him below Dexter's Lab purely because the last time they met up,
yeah,
they
kind of got beat up a little harder than I thought. I think it was a 5-1 on process.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it sounds familiar. But yeah.
I mean, we only have one roster change that really happened.
It's not super official. I just noticed we were scrimming them, but you can take it away if you'd like.
No,
we can talk about it if you want.
Running this podcast, sometimes we got to bank on, the first thing we see, and that's Phone and Shamu switching. This is something. This might be a last resort. I mean, I don't think it's a good change personally. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I mean, you're playing against it. Maybe there's a little bit of a change. Is it the same as it was before? Is it worse? Is it better? To me, it honestly just feels like it'd be worse.
Thinking about it more and more, I see why they did it, because I think a lot of the times Shamu maybe left Sky in a fight, and then Sky's just alone, gets bombed, dies, they lose the fight. I noticed that a lot in their match versus Mal, where it's everything went well, and then disaster. And it's probably because Shamu went to go do something, and then Sky's just left out to dry with maybe just a demo or a soldier, and they can't really protect against a bomb very well. And Phone plays really, really passive a lot of times, and plays around himself, but I think he'd be a decent combo scout replacement. He's not going to be as proactive as a lot of the veteran combo scouts, but I think it will at least helps them have a more stable anchor, and maybe Shamu can go for more plays on the flank, and Phone will just play on beam and try and keep Sky alive.
The only thing I'm worried about is with phone playing, I've always seen him as more as like a passive kind of scout. Yeah, whenever I watch him play, he's never really doing anything super proactive on the flank. It seems like you kind of have to tell him when to get in, just because he doesn't really have those crazy games, like or big plays in those matches. And typically, when you have those flank scouts who make those big plays, you don't really lose a lot of those matches to Ah Shie or Mal 5-0. Typically, your flank scout be a little bit more aggressive, get in position to be in a flank spot more to maybe get a meta kill or a demo kill on like a rough team fight. The reason why I think phone on combo scout's a little iffy is just because I feel like he's still going to play just as passive. I feel like he's just going to get 185 and not really approach and like create space with the buff. And I feel like Shamu's not the most experienced flank scout. I've played against it a little bit in recent time. I just feel like the other iteration's just better because at this point I feel like they should just try and fix whatever problem they have instead of having to relearn their combo and then potentially find more issues. I feel like it's just going to take longer.
This is like the age-old thing of, I know at least when Patty was on Ascent, a lot of times what happened when I was on Ascent with Patty, a lot of times what happened is there'd be some issue that came up, and instead of trying to like get the player to fix it, we just swapped classes. And sure, it solves that issue, but then it opens up other ones, and then what do you do then? And just, you need to take it head on unless there's some just perfect outcome or it's not manageable to do with the current lineup, which I think definitely could be fixed with this current one. But switching it definitely is a short-term thing that maybe will help with the big picture of what they think's going wrong.
I mean, yeah, hopefully they're able to get back on their feet. I want to see them play better. Maybe this is what they needed. But let's jump into the predictions now. We have only 4 matches lined up. Again, we have Froyo Ascent. I believe that Froyo Ascent match is the same one that got rescheduled. So, again, you already pretty much know our predictions for that if you watched last week's podcast. So, again, we're not going to waste your guys' time. Just go back, watch that episode. But we can start with Ascent versus Mal. I mean, I'm going to keep as history's been with Mal, knowing probably their mentality going into this game. I'm probably just going to give it 5-1 for Ascent. I mean, I just think Mal is probably going to run out of steam earlier than usual against Ascent and Froyo, like we've usually seen, where the games aren't as close versus the top 2 teams, but they have a very dominating performance against all the teams below them typically. So I'll give it 5-1 for Ascent. I feel like maybe Mal can take a round. Maybe they'll have a little bit more steam, a little bit more motivation after that Dorsia win, but we'll see.
Yeah, so I think last time they played, they had one of the biggest rolls, and like we said, there was a goose egg for at least a half. So I'm not really expecting. I don't think Mal's gonna really sweat it that much. So I think it'll also be a 5-1 for Ascent, and the map hasn't been announced, but I wouldn't expect much there.
Yep, I mean Ascent Froyo. Again, we're going into last week's map. Again, I said I believe 4-2. I could be wrong. Somewhere floating around there. I think Ascent has more than what it takes to play them on Gully Wash. That's the only thing we know different is now that it's Gully. And I guess my prediction might change a little bit. Maybe it'll go to 5. I think Ascent could win at 5-2. Surely just because I feel like their aggression might catch Froyo out on these mids. And Gully Wash is a map where you need like very good coordination of keeping track of soldiers when the demo's pushing, where the scouts are, just because if you lose track of one thing that can make a big play like a roaming soldier, that draws so much space and attention for your team that everything can fall apart so fast.
Yeah, the one thing I'd be interested on is to see how High Five actually plays mids, because I don't think anyone really knows him as like the high flying soldier who just, because Laz is gonna jump off the rock and Laz is gonna fly around, but I don't know how High Five's going to be able to like help with maybe double soldier aggression and all that, and maybe not being as used to the soldier role and like having the instincts of like, I'm going to hold this choke now, or I'm going to bomb here now on such like a soldier, an important soldier map at a lot of the points.
Maybe we'll see a bot mode scout, or I'm sorry, a bot mode soldier High Five scout. Maybe we'll see a little bit of a change. Who knows? I think they're going to run with the same roster they've been running though. So I'm really excited to see this match. Like I said, I believe this is happening Tuesday. I'm excited for it. It should be a good time. But again, we have 2 more matches that are getting played. Froyo versus Dorsia. Your team versus the top, one of the top dogs in the division. What do you think?
We're having a double header. So
ooh, double Froyo.
Yeah, in one night, getting it all done. But you know what? I don't have much written for this, but I'm gonna go on a limb. 5-2, 5-2 Froyo.
Both
Both
maps,
games.
both
I don't.
games.
I'm not looking too deep into it. We'll try and win, but 5-2. We take those.
I
We
mean
get those 2 rounds.
that's an honest scoreline. I feel like 5-2 is totally realistic for you guys. I mean, you guys have a strong roster. I was honestly thinking the same. I was thinking 5-2, 5-1, but I wanted to be funny and just say it was gonna be 5-2, 5-3. But
For me?
nah, for Ascent or
Oh,
Froyo rather. Sorry,
that's not very funny then.
I just wanted to maybe get 5 rounds total across the 2 maps, but you know I think Dorsia, they have incredible players on it. Yumps, Yite, yourself, Cookie Jake. That team is just full of talent. And 2 rounds on Froyo is definitely possible. I don't think the dub's gonna come out, but I think that, I don't think it's gonna get you guys are gonna get rolled. I think, you're gonna take a couple games. Take a couple rounds rather, but
Yeah, and the last game of at least scheduled so far, I think, or at least is supposed to be this week, is Ascent Ah Shie. I put 5-1 Ascent. Ascent really just steamrolls over these teams that just don't match up mechanically as well. Maybe they have good coordination, but Ascent is just gonna roll over you with everyone they have if you let them do it at least.
oh yeah, I mean honestly, I'm giving a 5-0 to Ascent. Seeing that Dexter's Lab game and seeing how Ashi was struggling pretty hard against Dexter's Lab in that process match. I don't think that Ascent's going to let them take a round. I think it's just going to be 5. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was against Dexter's Lab. Maybe All She might bring
You
a
gotta
little bit more
hope.
heat to the table. But I think 5-0 for Ascent, man. They played that. Looking at those stats, that's crazy to see that stat line.
And that's all our Preds. Like we said, this is gonna be
Yeah.
a really barren week, at least for a lot of the stuff for us now. But maybe next week there'll be more with the Froyo Ascent happening and a couple other big matches. But we're gonna move on to, we asked for questions in the Discord and we got a good amount. So we're gonna go in. The first one was for me, best pain train maps. When is it worth running? I think it's worth running on almost every map because there's gonna be a couple situations where you could win around just by backcapping, like Snake Water, you get behind, you send 2 people, you get ×4 on that point. Sunshine, any of the maps I think it's pretty good on. Maybe Gully being not as good because mid and second cap time are very similar. But I think it is definitely worth it, and especially if you get behind, you have another opportunity or another option in a lot of fights.
Whenever I think Pain Train, I think of that one match last season. Mad Luxurious versus Rat Jail and Granary. It was 4-4, and Okiwaka was on last, about to cap the point. And that was a perfect pain train moment. If he had the pain train, he won the round. He won the game. Like, it can come down to games of that thing. Not as often as you would think, but I remember that game. It was a wild night of watching that match in TF2, but I'm excited to see more pain. Hopefully more pain train being ran, honestly. I think for Romer, I think once you're jumping scouts, you kind of sold out at that point.
Yeah, I think there's more opportunities where you'll win a round than the 10% really will just be like, all right, that sucks, but that cap time is big, especially because you can always cap and leave your scouts to go forward and all that. But overall, I think it's definitely worth it to run on most maps, at least not on mids. Not on mids. 10% maybe matters there. But we're going to move on next question. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, for sure. And the next question is probably going to be, to me, we have from Rave, what's the most, sorry, that my phone's popping off here. What's the most interesting favorite RGL season to watch? I mean, to watch, this season's honestly really fun to watch, but I'm sure there's been other really good seasons, and nothing really comes to my mind offhand of like a bunch of upsets or like a crazy playoff race. So I think personally, it's probably going to be in like recent time that I can remember is going to honestly, I'm just going to say this season because I just can't remember any like other extravagant seasons besides like season 21 where like Froyo lost in like the first time in like a while online. and they haven't lost, I believe, since then. They won out every season, I believe.
I think season 20 they lost.
Oh, season
21
20.
was the
Oh,
Muma where they
Yeah,
got
season
strawberry
20.
mangoes and stuff. But I think I don't know. Playing the seasons is kind of harder to tell, but the one I casted like full out, season 31 was really good. It was pretty good. There was a lot of like parody. I think that was when there was like Meat Market, Mentality, Froyo, Ascent, and I think Ascent beat Froyo either I think on Granary, and that was a really cool match. There was a good matchup between Meat Market and Mentality. It kind of ended a little bit sad because I think Reimu's ESCA wasn't working, so they had to have Speedy on Scout.
Oh,
And
I
it
remember.
wasn't too good. But overall, that season was really fun to cast and watch all the matches and see the storylines progress. I'll say season 31.
That's a good one. How do you think having the same core of maps will, with minimal change for years, has impacted the game? Should we have changed them out for different maps? Are Clear Cut, Villa Bagel, etc. steps in the right direction? That's from Fancyson. I think in terms of like minimal changes for current maps, this is going to be kind of like, in terms of like actual like game changes, I'm thinking more of like aesthetic changes. I've always wanted to see like process at nighttime and maybe like a snowy theme, or like sun, or like snake water in the daytime, or maybe like metalworks, maybe like it's like abandoned, it's like has like a bunch of like grass, it's overgrown, stuff like that. I've always thought it was cool, but I feel like if you take the more like CS:GO approach of it, where like if you do like very minimal changes to certain points of the map, but not actually ruin the flow of the map, that'd be something cool. But they do like map rotations where like Dust 2 was taken out for a super long time, and they had like completely overhauled the map, and nothing, and then they swapped in another map for that time. And we haven't really done that for TF2, where we really changed the map. I think Granary was the only one in like my head that's like they like changed how the map looked, and well, not really looked, but mainly added doorways, added different boxes, changed the look of the map, not just the aesthetic, like actually how it like played sometimes, having that little extra door and garage and stuff like that.
Yeah, one of the big aesthetic ones was Viaduct to Product, where they just took out all the snow. Is like the big thing. But I think having the same core of maps is good. I think we should definitely bring in newer maps. Just slowly, take out one people don't like or it's getting really boring. You bring in a new one. You have a test, like a bunch of testing, and at the end, everyone votes on what map they think's the best, and you get a new one in. And then if it's not good, take it out, get something else, maybe try a different game mode, something new, something more interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing like a fall theme to a map, because we always have some like orange leaves, all that. So I think that's yeah, I'd definitely like to see some new maps as well.
Here's a really good question. We have another one from JWB here. How much do you think Froyo always wins? Or how much do you think the Froyo always wins because they're the only really ones who care, like statement holds up in reality? Obviously, they, besides like the core that they have and the structure, and Banny being as good as a leader as he actually is, there's definitely teams who do care. I can tell you that, and I know that it may not seem that way because maybe Froyo just dominates as hard as they do, and maybe like people say, like, oh, Ascent and Mal and all these top three teams don't care. They don't actually want to beat Froyo. But it's more than that. Like these teams do want to beat Froyo, and they actually care to beat Froyo, like 100%.
Yeah, I think the thing that really like makes that statement a thing is because how much more time they can put into it with Banny's full-time job being TF2. And with TF2 not being as big, it's not very sustainable for many other people to be able to put that many hours into demo watching, map reviews, what else? Just all stuff like that. And the structure being the same, I think, it's pretty, I don't know, they keep the same core, and that definitely helps a lot of times. And I think other teams competing, they definitely try, but it's not nearly as much do or die for a lot of the other teams in that sense.
Yeah, I mean Froyo. I know my teams are usually play a season, maybe two, fold. We played season 30 or 40, and played season 20 or 31, then season two, and then kind of just like broke up and did our own thing. So that is one thing. Obviously, if teams that have a ton of potential stay together, there is a better chance of beating Froyo. But typically, the mentality that usually Invite has is they want to get the best possible players or players who show the absolute best potential and actually care for the game. Usually get a chance to play on like an Ascent or a top two team. And there are players who want to do that, like Guy, for example. Guy is a perfect example of an up and coming player who has the potential to do it and beat Froyo, and they gave him a chance, and he's playing really, really good. So there are people who do care to beat Froyo. It's not just a myth. It's like, oh, these other invite teams don't care. They don't practice enough. It's we do practice every single game. I know Marmaloo, when he plays in certain teams, he puts 100% effort into it.
I think another thing, I just think I forgot it, but oh yeah, one big thing is I didn't realize until I really got into college is the timetables. At some point you can't commit as much time, and it's like from high school to like either getting a full-time job, getting stuff like that, and especially being on like West Coast is scrims and stuff started like 7. So you have to finish everything before 7 and be ready. And then you get to go to bed at a decent hour, but like you have to be done at 7 and have everything. And it's kind of hard if you want to try and have a career, a social life,
Yeah, agreed.
School, all that. And you can't really commit as much time as some other people.
Like being like, for me who works full time on top of playing TF2, I've been, like on my days off from work or that I would usually hang out with my friends, that all gets cut short early. Like, I'll go to like a Smash tournament on Wednesday, and I'll leave at 9 o'clock because I have to get ready for scrims at 10 or get ready for a match instead of like going out to dinner or like hanging out with friends still until like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, like I normally would if I wasn't playing throughout the season. So there was a season where I didn't want to play. RGL season 1 was mainly one of those after Ford Gaming kind of like, didn't show interest. Bear was actually going to study abroad, and May didn't want to play that season, so it was kind of just like a full on let's just relax and take the season off. We had a really good season. Let's just chill. We went to RGB land and we all kind of just relaxed that one season. I don't really know who else played that season. I think Sai played and a couple other people played, but that was a really nice, refreshing season for me. But definitely, there are people who are dedicated and willing to put the time in to beat Froyo. It's just you don't really see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of the top teams really go through to try and beat Froyo.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of that. So, gonna move on to the next session we got from also JWB, and it's what is your stance on people's claims that groups of people together, they kind of make a team and they pick people from their group, and people have said it prevents aspiring players from getting to invite and killing the game, and I don't think that's really true, because you've seen if a player is really, really good, they'll make it to a team. Like if you're that good, because I know for myself, I was in a server, I made a team.
Yeah, I mean, what I can. Oh, you still good? I saw your mic
Yeah, I'm good,
muted. So all right, cool. But one thing that I always noticed is it isn't true. Like circle jerks, they're obviously, when people claim there's like circle jerks preventing people get to the top, people usually assume like right in that playoff barrier, you know, that's where like the high level invite, friend groups happen. That's just because these people have been playing with each other for 5-6 years at this point now, and a lot of these up and coming players aren't friends with those players, so they have to either grow an attachment to them in pugs and make friends that way, or try and get a way to get invited to in houses. But like I said, Jae Hyun Pei is a perfect example of someone who is just like like a low invite soldier and stuff like that. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, you finished with the question.
Yeah. So another thing is, oh my god. Okay, so like he said, Jay made it to invite, all that, and it's really easy to stick with what you know, because you know exactly what you're getting when you pick a friend up. You've talked to him for so long, you have all that, and just getting someone that's a bit unknown. It's a bit rough, and it's not as tempting to do unless they're really, really good and you really want to push for being the best team possible and all that. So, yeah, with him gone, I think I'm gonna touch on the next question we got. I don't know if he's coming back or not, but I'm gonna move on to another one from JWB. We're just doing an order we got from Discord. If you want your questions answered, post them in Discord. We asked for them earlier, and we got a bunch. So, opinions on Pro Mod. So, if you don't know, Pro Mod was what was proposed at the start of the season, where it was, I think it was scout speed buff. There was ramp bug fixes. I think it was proposed that gunboats don't do as much self damage. We're on Pro Mod right now, but gunboats don't do as much self damage to you if you hit someone directly in front of you. Fall damage being fixed and not random, and I think sticky det bug as well. And I think, I don't know, the scout speed buff change would really change how the game works, and I think it definitely needs a lot more testing if you want to even propose it, to just throw in something that completely changed the meta and all that. But I definitely think these other ones that are bug fixes, not as much the gunboat change, because I think that was definitely intended. Because if you look at the description for gunboats, it says it does less damage for rocket jumping.
Yeah, so
specifically.
No, I agree. Like I said, talking more on the medic scout speed thing, I just think that, medic adds and gets a people will probably disagree with me at this. I know you agreed to an extent. People were saying that, medics is just it's a stupid thing to have for a medic. I just think personally adds another level to medic. Obviously, yeah, it indirectly buffs scout because scouts have a bigger incentive to stay with the medic because their medic can follow them more. Don't get me wrong. I've played in both eras in Invite with no scout buff and with scout buff, and I can tell you that medics are way more it's just way more fun to play medic in general, and also adds more depth to it in terms of positioning, how you can surf, where you can go, the Ubers you take, everything kind of changes that dynamic. Yeah, obviously it's harder to bomb a medic, it's harder to catch him out. And don't get me wrong, it sucks. I've seen my own soldiers on my own team struggle to catch out a medic because he moves too fast. Or if he didn't have scout speed, he probably would have died. But like I just said, I think it should absolutely get tested more. I'm more than happy to change it back to how it used to be. I'm personally indifferent, but I just think it adds more to medic in terms of what they can do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a big change, and I do enjoy how it allows for a lot more fast-paced things where your scouts you can go for more risky fights, and then your med can still get out. You can take Uber exchanges, and your med can still get out very easily. But it also simplifies the class a little bit and makes it so you don't get punished nearly as hard. But I definitely also think it adds a bit more depth. You can have demo bombs. It's more fun to play medic. Another problem, like Sandblast said, was Combo Scout's kind of a super class now. You're 185 at all times, and your medic can stay with you forever, and it makes Soldier a bit harder, but I think with Soldiers getting better and better, they still kill meds at a good rate. It's not like med deaths dropped significantly. There was still really, really good games, and as the skill went up, it made medic a lot better and a lot easier to play, which I think is a very good balance.
The only thing that I think, if you were to make a pro mod, like, kind of like if you think of, when I think pro mod, I think like COD 4 pro mod, like it's a mod of the game kind of thing. I think if you were to do that to like nerf combo set, I think you just reduce his max buff to like 150. Give him, 35%, give him 35 less health. It's not the biggest nerf, but 150 allows him to get headshot from a sniper. So, if you're playing a map like Viaduct, if you're, like I said, like Viaduct, that's a huge nerf to scout because your soldier, if they have a really good sniper, maybe like Laz or something, or Jay, someone who can play sniper really, really efficiently. Imagine if the scout only had 150 and he was just running around with the medic on the beam. If you just headshot him, if you have good aim, he's dead. You don't even have to charge it, which is an interesting nerf that could happen to scout. But like I said, that'll literally never happen. But I feel like next season, before it starts, maybe like 2 weeks before the season, maybe if you're going to run map cups like we usually do before the season starts, I feel like we should, maybe implement the scout speed medic buff, kind of get, toned down a little bit, keep it out of the map cup, see how it plays. If it's manageable and you realize that, oh, it's more fun that way, then take it out of the game. I'm fine with it. But I just think I don't think anyone can argue to me that it makes medic less enjoyable being able to run as fast as a scout, have better dodging because of it, have better mechanics, surf better, get into safe spots more, all that fun stuff. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think the things like The bug fixes, like we said, sticky det bug, that is a known bug. It just hasn't been fixed. That definitely should be fixed, along with
Oh, for sure.
another plugin that was made for the medics building Uber when paused. That's a bug that is not intended. Things that were intended, like I said, gunboats, that's definitely intended. Fall damage being random, I think that because the same thing happens with the hit scan. It has random spread unless you change the command to have it set spreads. Where it'd be really obnoxious to play scout and there's just a bit of RNG is how many of my bullets will go near my crosshair? And stuff like that. And then ramp bugs, that's, I don't know, that's probably a bug and it's just the engine being a bit older and them not updating it. And stuff like that definitely should be fixed. I don't know, you'd have to see, because it would really change the game if you just took away medic scout speed.
Yeah, I mean, Scout shouldn't have as much privilege as they do, being able to kind of just, choose as many fights as they are, especially in like, close encounters. And I think that if we were to keep the Scout buff, I feel like if there was some way where Valve would just make an adjustment but keep it, I feel like Scout should just have like a smaller overheal to like 150 or just remove it. But like I said, I like it. I think it's cool. I think it allows medics to do a little bit more than they were used to be, let them do more than they were used to, allow them to move more efficiently, dodge better, and it does incentivize healing scouts. I understand it makes them more powerful indirectly, but that's just how it is. I hope we can find a way to maybe Valve will actually fix it. Maybe they'll figure out another way to test it, but I think a map cup with the plugin set to scout speed off, like how the Europeans are playing it in Pro Pugs, I think that'd be a great start to seeing if it's something we should keep. And then hopefully end up, after we do all this, we have a universal whitelist again. So when there ever is a LAN, once this whole COVID stuff's over, we can actually have the same whitelist, the same map pool, everything like that. That's what I would like personally. I think instead of, we play on first to 5 instead of, win difference of 5. I feel like we should find a common ground there.
Also, the big thing of 1/2 versus 2/2, where NA is literally 2 times longer in every match, or it hypothetically is 2 times longer in every match, and it's just different in a lot of ways. Where I hope at someday there'll be some decided upon
consistency
rule set for games. Like maybe you have 20-minute halves and you just have something like that. But the problem is Europe has a different format for matches where you have two maps against one team every week instead of having 2 different matches. But yeah, I think that's most of that.
Yeah, I mean, we do have one more question. I think we're gonna call it wraps here. Most underrated and most intelligent player in Invite. I feel like this is a good one to close it out on. Give someone an invite their little bit of their credit. And honestly, most underrated, I'm gonna think I have a couple thoughts on. Do you have yours lined up yet?
I'm thinking still on it. So
Okay, because one of mine, I'll give you because I have like 3. One of them's Hayes. I feel like Hayes. I've only kind of seen him put up good stats, and at this point, I'd probably say he's the best player on his team. I feel like he has a lot of damage. He has a lot of space that gets created. I just feel like that he has more that he can do, but I feel like he's playing his role better than most of the other soldiers below him in Invite, or above him rather, like against Mirror Man or maybe even I'm trying to think of the pocket on Ah Shie for a second. I believe that's Alexandros or Dingo.
it's Alexandros, I think.
Alexandros, yeah, but he does really, really good. He's been playing good. I feel like that he has the potential to make a jump in Invite to potentially a more consistent 5th seed team, maybe a more contested 5th or 4th place team. But he's definitely one that comes to mind.
Yeah, most underrated. I'm gonna say Bull. I think Bull's a really strong player. He's a good DM. He's a big main caller. Maybe he talks a bit too much, but he definitely gets what he wants going. And for the intelligent question, it's obviously gonna be Banny for the most intelligent, but I think he's also really smart and knows what's going on. And I think he'd be definitely a good addition to any team that just needs some leadership or some calling, especially in the demo role.
I will. Bolomeo was my other one of my other underrated characters. He's super, super potential based. He does talk a lot watching his streams. He is entertaining watching him play. But I think one of the most intelligent players, obviously Banny's probably number one, but someone who's really, really close is Bot Mode. I think Bot Mode is an incredibly smart player. I think when he was playing demo on Ascent, I think that was some of the most interesting TF2 I watched. It was super cool to watch them play, especially when they played Froyo on Granary. I feel like Bot Mode has such an interesting and unique way to play TF2 that I really love to watch. And Bot Mode has some of, I think, the best main calling in all of TF2. And he did really good on LAN main calling on Ascent over in Europe. And I assume he's probably doing the exact same thing on his team now on Ascent. So Bot Mode's probably one of my most intelligent players, since you're saying Banny, just to not agree on, or just not to repeat the same thing essentially. But Bull Mayo, definitely a sleeper demo. He's been playing really, really good in his matches. I feel like he has a couple flaws with getting caught out, but
That's just him
definitely
not
someone.
playing sixes as much,
Yeah,
probably. But I think you could
yeah,
definitely say almost anyone from Ah Shie is a very good contender for underrated, because I don't think
for
anyone
sure.
thought that they'd win a game. Honestly, win a game or play some of these games closer. And they're
Yeah,
definitely a pleasant surprise with all these people, kind of not being on a team before, and everyone kind of coming into their own. Like Esper's doing well, Bull's doing good, Daffodil's done pretty well. Dingo's definitely showing why he's
Dingo's
always been on
Dingo.
so many teams. Yeah.
Yeah,
Legit's
he's
had a
he's.
couple standout matches. Alexandros has also had a couple standout matches. Everyone really pulling their weight.
But honestly, guys, like I said, a little bit more of a lighter week in terms of uh, news and matches coming up. So we are gonna probably call it here. We still have a couple questions left over, but just not to get too repetitive with questions. We're gonna save some of the questions we have left for next week's podcast. So other than that, guys, we had a lot of fun. Hopefully next week we don't have a lot of or this week we don't have a lot of matches get postponed due to people not showing up or availability issues. So we have more to talk about. Normally we have 7 to 8 matches we cover and give our predictions for and recap. This week we had 4, and a lot of the predictions were mainly a top invite versus bottom invite this week. So hopefully this week will change that a little bit, and we can see the matches coming into next week. But other than that, unless you got anything else to say, Marmo, I think that's pretty much it for today.
Go get those tendies.
Go get those tendies.
Yeah, it's time. It's tendy time. Go ahead.
Yeah, my family has dinner, and my sisters calm me down. But other than that, guys, thank you for watching this next episode of Golden Cap. We'll be around next week, obviously. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit more stuff to cover with you guys, so it's not a little bit less, not it's more question heavy, but more actual news and match heavy, like we want this to be. We'll include more power rankings and get everything all squared away. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. It's tendy time, and yeah, peace out.